Ooh, ooh, ooh. What? If I was a shape, I'd be a trapezoid. I'm not gonna tell you what rapper said that, but if you know ball, you know ball. But yeah, that line has been in my head all day. It's a good line. If I was a shape, I would be a trapezoid. Hell yeah. Before we get started on today's discussion, I want to try an exercise with you. I want you to imagine yourself face to face with a problem. For some, the problem could be a life situation, but I want you to make it more simple, like a math problem. But note what problem came up on your impulse. That'll be used later. The math problem is the single expression of a question, an imbalance between what you know and what is given to you. Focus on the feeling you experience as the problem in your mind is just sitting there, almost begging to be solved. What is that sensation? I remember when I was in school, there was an anxiety caused by math at large that made me resent the way these questions just existed. Like, nigga, like it knew it was a problem. And the academic contract made it my problem. You feel me? Like, give me a break, nigga. Like, what? But, as students, we have to solve what is given to us. We have to collapse that distance between us and the solution in order to progress. It's part of the process. I want you to focus on how you feel about the problem in front of you in this visualization. Are you like me? Do you feel an anxiety welling up in your chest, firing visions of failure and turmoil in your mind? Or do you calm yourself and take apart the problem with what you know, what is unknown, and how to bridge that distance? I think we can be both archetypes of problem solvers depending on the circumstance. But I wanted to start with math because it was an eminent source of anxiety in my own life. But some, I recognize some flourish with it. Some see those numbers, those symbols, the imbalance of an equation, and it excites them. But it's not me. To me, math remains a daunting mystery that I'd rather keep my distance from. As foolish as that sounds, as foolish as that is. And that right there, the mystery, is what we'll be discussing today. I'm your host, Christopher, and you're watching The.MAZIST, where madness meets method and method meets mythos. And at the end of the day, we're all just trying to practice our best selves. You feel me? Why mystery is the doorway, why honesty is the key. I think at large, we are aware of the mysteries that elude us, but we chalk them up as meaningless labor compared to the problems we deem more immediate, more pragmatic to consider through our priority. I think that's because we equate the more abstract concept of the mysteries with their value. Thus, the generally undefined nature of these quote unquote lofty problems becomes the rationale behind our ignorance. Now, I want to ground this episode in the micro. I want to speak on what we, as individuals living day in, day out, can do to contend with these big unknowns. I say it like this. We often choose our pain, but what we don't know usually doesn't kill us in today's rather insulated yet over-surveilled time. But I think there is a certain pain we should choose more often than not when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to awareness. And that is the pain of questioning. Let's bring it back to math. I'm sure a lot of you have felt anxiety with it over the years. I don't put that past anybody. It's hard. But in math, there is a process of filtration, application, review, and repetition that is somewhat automated in the minds of the math nerds out there, the mathematicians. Let me break it down. First, they filter through their extensive arsenal of formulas, processes, and systems to see what fits the conditions of the problem they're facing. Then, they apply what they think is the most appropriate for their situation. And then, seeing what works and what doesn't in the review, They repeat the first two steps until the review concludes with their solution. And as much as I hate math, I can appreciate the beauty in its simplicity and complexity. The symbols, the numbers, the way an equation gets whittled down like wood to a fine point. And then it can produce a picture showing the inputs in their rightful spaces, talking about graphs. I say this to say there is art to the mysteries that plague us as individuals. There is an art to asking the right questions to come to new conclusions. Don't believe me? Look at Sherlock Holmes, Dude is like Shakespeare for detectives, you feel me? But like all art, the components, which on their own feel like pesky memories, uncomfortable variables, awkward shapes, they ultimately become greater than the sum of its parts. Meaning, the solutions or the symmetry or the harmony or what have you, it's all possible because you gathered the disparate elements and made something shake. Like at the end of the day, it's just beautiful how it all comes together. I think there are a lot of people out there I feel don't have the patience to deal with the elements of their confusion. Whether it be with a work problem, a school project, a relationship, or even a piece of media that perplexes them. There's pain at that threshold of understanding. It involves somebody closing the distance with what they don't know. At that core principle, they should be afraid. You feel me? I don't blame them. It's completely natural. But I'm going to just say this for the one time. For the one time. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the acknowledgement of it and moving anyway. I forgot who said that that quote really, but they were cooking. You feel me? But mystery, however that loaded concept manifests for you, is the only thing standing in the way between you and growth, you and progress, you and solutions. But in mustering up the courage, how can you even start to do that if you're not honest with yourself? Let me repeat. In mustering up the courage to face the mysteries of your life, how can you even start that ordeal without honesty? Now, don't get me started on the shit I see on X, on Reels, on Threads, hell, on Reddit. Nigga, people have this conviction to just be wrong or just to put up a facade that they do know. Now I say this, given the fact I'm, on YouTube spitting a video about something I think I know, practice discernment with what I'm saying here. This facade is a byproduct of the attention market media complex, but I'll get to that in a different video. For now, let's focus on the implications of this facade, this masking. It implies a performative routine of behavior that intends to stimulate connection. But more often than not, it leaves much to be desired by those that practice this. The message could be lost in the communication. The meme could be buried in the uncanny valley of simulated behavior. There is an illusion of authenticity, but there is no surrender to truly who the expression is representing. No idea of what is really being conveyed. I blame irony, honestly. I blame meta content hidden beneath layers of sarcasm and parody. We can pretend to understand the joke or the content all we want. It's not going to help us tell the truth to our loved ones for once so we can stop feeling like shit. You feel me? Nope. It only masks. It only hides behind what we construct to dance around the flames, raising our gardens. I don't want you to shy away anymore. I want you to conquer that flame. I want you to conquer that immeasurable depth, your Marianas Trench of self. It's literally the barrier between you and just a first step solution to a better understanding of yourself and your place in the world. That's what's at stake here. You feel me? And that's what the Mazist is bringing forth as a new possibility for your practice. But what is the practice? What can you do as a practice? How can you change and apply that change to your current system? Well, I just think it's a matter of asking the right questions, really. Now, this is a process. It's not perfect, but this is the start of something. Let me cook. First, I want you to, again, imagine yourself faced with a problem. This can be anything now, not just math. This could be a problem. This should be a problem that you're either used to facing or good at solving. Both can be true at the same time, though. Write it down. Now, imagine someone asking you a dumbass slew of questions about the problem, or just generally being a nuisance to your solving process. Write down what they do, how they do it, what they ask, anything that seems to be a distraction in between you and your chosen problem's solution. Now I want you to step outside yourself for a moment and write down why you think that person or that distraction exists in the first place. Why that question seems so stupid, but more so what the underlying truth behind it is. The key here is not to think too hard on the distraction you first imagine in the scenario. That reasoning, though, that rationale behind the seeming distraction from your chosen problem, that should be thoroughly and objectively observed. For it is an estimation of how you are when you're faced with something a little too out of reach, a little too confusing, a little too scary to consider. That rationale is different from the tried and true process ingrained in your mind as you tangle with the problem of your choice. I'm asking you to make the hard choice. Compare and contrast the perspectives. Again, that rationale by the distraction, whether stupid, convoluted, or even clever, is the foundation of the questions you need to ask yourself when tasked with an abstract, a mystery that you feel like you really need to solve. This will be muddy at first, a bit unclear because you may not be used to stepping in another's shoes or much less an imagined person's shoes. But I want you to try it multiple times this upcoming week. I want you to try and have the courage to write down what may not be known against even the problems you do know. All it takes is a bit of honesty. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video and you have questions or you want to discuss something deeper, hit me up on my Instagram or leave a comment below. If you want to read more of my work, I have poetry and prose and other types of writings on my blog on Substack. Subscribing is free and it goes straight to your email. If you want to listen to some, wizard music for the future type shit, type Gold Maze. That's GLD Maze, all caps when you spell the man's name. That's on all platforms. And then tap into the saga unfolding. You feel me? For all that good stuff, the link is in the description. Let's get through this maze together. Peace.